So I'm Alicia Poon. I'm the Curator of Education for the Indian Arts Research Center. So we finally reached our final discussion of our IRC Speakers Series, Trailblazers and Boundary Breakers, honoring Native women in art. So I just want to thank you all for following along on this important journey. We're so pleased to be included as part of the 40th anniversary celebration of the IRC and to have the opportunity to dedicate this series to our 1988 to 1989 Jaclyn H. Lamone and 2000 Ronald and Susan Dubin Fellow Eliza Naranjo Morse. So over the last 3 weeks, we've had the pleasure of delving and uncovering the history of Native women in the arts in all its guts and glory. But tonight, I think it's about time we take a look at the present and glimpse into the future. So I'm honored to introduce tonight's moderator, Jaclyn Roessel, who will in turn introduce you to our illustrious panel. So Jaclyn was born and raised on the Navajo Nation. An alumnus from Arizona State University, she was the inaugural recipient of the Arizona Humanities Rising Star Award and has been named one of Phoenix's 100 Creatives You Should Know. Her work as a writer, poet, and installation artist is motivated by theories of futurism and healing. Jaclyn is the 2017 and 2018 National Arts Strategies Creative Community Fellow and a recent graduate of the Native Entrepreneurs in Residence program. As president of Grownup Navajo, Jaclyn's consulting firm, she's dedicated to integrating Native American teaching into museums and nonprofits. Through all her work, she aims to inspire people to use their traditional knowledge and creativity as a catalyst for change. So please join me in welcoming Jaclyn Roessel.
Yeah, it's such an honor to be here with you all tonight, and I first want to just acknowledge that we are on the ancestral homelands of the Puebloan people who have and continue to make their home in these lands and have cultivated and provided us with a lot of sustenance to be able to enjoy the creativity that comes into this place. And so with that, we just like to extend our appreciation, our respects to the people of this land. This has been such an honor to facilitate this conversation and prepare for tonight. And I am so driven by just having powerful conversations with women. And this, I just want to extend thanks to the panelists because we've had some meaningful conversations leading up to this one that we'll have in a public forum. And all of the facilitation that I'll be providing is really energized by the brain trust of these three extraordinary women. And while they are the ones who will make me sound very profound and articulate as I ask these questions, but it really comes out of the many conversations that we've had together via Google Hangout, in person, over the phone, via email. We used all mediums of technology to be able to synthesize really what we wanted to say, what they wanted to say as artists. And so it's really with that, I just want to say to each of you for just your work in helping us prepare for tonight. And with that being said, we really want this evening to be one that is challenging for you and also stimulating. And so we begin this really with an invitation to conspire. And through a fellowship that I went through, a colleague of mine shared that the root word of conspire actually comes from two Latin words, which together mean to breathe together. And with that said, I know it takes a lot for us to come out during the week, to leave our homes, to leave children, for those of you who are parents, to leave fur babies, get them all set and ready to go. And I think I want to invite everyone to take a breath with us and really clear your mind and your lungs for this conversation that we're going to have. So if you will, let's conspire together and take an inhaling breath and an exhale. Thank you. We are, with that being said, really want to, one of the things that came up in our conversation was there's a tendency with panel discussions to have to talk in sound bites, to sound very clever and very profound, to respond very quickly to questions being asked as though you've been thinking about them your whole career. And while a lot of these thoughts are reoccurring themes in these women's work, it really is a conversation that is ongoing and is one that we hope can be a joint conversation, and we'll do some things to change our location as we go about the night, and I'll explain that as we get to that place. But without further ado, I want to introduce the wonderful women that we are going to be hearing from. First, I'd like to introduce Eliza Naranjo Morse, who is from Santa Clara Pueblo and lives in Española, New Mexico. She was born in 1980 and comes from two large families and has a twin brother. Her process has been greatly defined by her elders' information, drawing, color, cartoons, clay, emotions, navigating the human experience, and searching for balance. She has shown her work locally as well as internationally and keeps her studio at an old post office in Chimayo, New Mexico. Sorry. These are samples of Eliza's work. Next, we have Jordan Craig, who is Northern Cheyenne, as well as a painter, printmaker, designer, and an emerging artist at the nascence of her career. She draws inspiration from Aboriginal art, indigenous textiles, and pottery and landscapes, telling stories about her childhood, family, trauma, and the appealingly mundane. Craig explains using dots, peculiar geometrics, cut paper, and pattern. I explore the feeling of forgetting how to sleep, the memory of building homes in trees, and the translation of language and dreams. And Jordan is currently making her residence here at SAR. She is the 2018 Eric and Barbara Dobkin Native Arts Fellow at the School for Advanced Research. And finally, we have Dr. Jessica Metcalfe, who is a Turtle Mountain Chippewa and the owner of Beyond Buckskin, which is a website and boutique dedicated to promoting and selling Native American-made fashion. She has co-curated exhibitions and taught college courses in Native American studies, studio art, art history, and literature. Her current work focuses on American Indian art, clothing, and design from all periods, with an emphasis on contemporary artists. So with that, let's give a warm welcome to our wonderful panelists. So we've tried to create the scene so you can have seen some of their work, you know a little bit of the trajectory of these women's careers. And with that said, there's no other way to get around having to kind of summarize what your work is. But hopefully, through our conversations, thinking about the making of art as a journey, we would like to know really, like, how did your work come to be? Like, where did you get to this place? By which means?
Who's going to start?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
So my story, I think a good place to start would be in 2009. I was writing my doctoral dissertation on Native designers of high fashion. I was actually here at the School for Advanced Research as the Branniger intern, working here, and so this is like coming home for me. It's been 9 years. That's so cool. So I get to come back. But I was writing my dissertation, and when you're in academia, you quickly realize that your audience is very small and limited, and I didn't like that because I was interviewing these artists, and they were sharing their personal journeys with me, and they were handing over their collections of photographs or brochures from past events, and they were doing this with the idea that I was going to do something with this information they were giving me. And I was building an archive, but I felt like I wasn't doing enough. And so at that time, and still to this day, the quickest, easiest, cheapest way for you to get your words out to more people is by launching a blog or having an online website. So I launched the Beyond Buckskin blog, and I was interviewing the designers, writing their stories, and also looking at historical clothing of adornment. And then something really cool happened. We started to get more followers to the blog. It was very organic. And the followers, the readers, were saying, this stuff is so cool. Where can we buy it? Where can we get this stuff? And at that time in 2011, there wasn't a place to easily access native-made fashion. You had to go to a reservation. You had to go to an event like a powwow or Santa Fe Indian Market or come here. And a lot of people don't have access to do that. So I decided to create that space with an online boutique. And it's working, and it's great, and it's good. So I work with over 40 Native artists now. When I launched in 2012, it was just 11 artists and a $100 investment. We now have, and yeah, it was $100 that I spent towards building the website. I paid somebody to build my website, and I hated it. So I completely revamped it and taught myself HTML and all that coding stuff. And then 2 years ago, we opened up our first retail brick and mortar shop on the Turtle Mountain Indian Reservation in the fashion mecca of Belcourt, North Dakota. So if you're ever there, come by and see us. So we're this little anomaly. We're this little diamond in the rough. We have 3 employees. They're 17, 19, and 19 years old. We're really the only outlet for youth to engage in something creative as a career path, and we're trying to show them that this is a valid career path. Yes, you can be a filmmaker. Yes, you can be a designer. Yes, you can do all of this really cool stuff, and we're trying to show that with hands-on projects. So that's how I got here.
Thank you. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I got here really by following an old idea. It was becoming comfortable with the way of life that the people before me were living, the way my mom and her family were going about their daily life, and the way that they were interpreting that from their mom, their grandma, their grandma's grandma. I'm an artist, but I look at all of the things that I do as a creative process, anything I put my heart into. And and I think this is not just indigenous to North Americans or South Americans, but it's common to people who have a longer sense of home, that your life can be filled with the daily activities of it, right? Of farming, of cleaning, of family, of relationship, of looking at the world around you resourcefully. And when I became comfortable that I could call that my work, then I began to be comfortable as that type of artist who is interpreting those value systems, those ways of living as an art form. This wasn't my invention. I wasn't like going out on some crazy limb. I think that it was, it took a moment to get comfortable and confident with that idea that can work in 2000, 2010, 2015. But really it was modeled to me by my family and by my community. And to find it created this feeling of like coming home in myself. The way that's expressed is in all kinds of ways at this point. I'm an art teacher at my community at Santa Clara Pueblos Elementary School. I'm building a house. I farm. I spend a lot of time with aunties and uncles and cousins. And then I do, really ordinary, the maintenance of life that I think all of us do. That's what I call my work. Did I mention that I make artwork, like object-oriented artwork? I do that as well, but that's sort of that's equal to everything else. Thank you.
Hi. I have to say also my family grew me to be what I am today. I grew up in a really artistic family. My father is a chemical engineer. My mother has just been my mother. And they're both extremely, extremely creative. They won't ever admit that, but they are. My father can make realistic paintings, and he did all the woodworking in our home, including the floors, the furniture, the Adirondack furniture, all that. And then my mother she sewed all my clothing growing up. She sewed all of the furniture, the cushions. When they didn't have money, they would sew even their friends' things. And they even, at one point, collaborated and made Christmas ornaments and sold that for extra money. And they even went on vacation because of that. So I grew up in this family where my parents were really inspiring. And my father, I remember, I got so excited how to learn how to properly shade a nose. And my sister and I were just like, got our pencils out, and we got really excited because he was going to actually show us how to properly do it without, the triangle. And they didn't really know that had such a profound impact on me as a young artist. And even, I even think my mom, every school project, my mom would make her own project, and she'd compete with us. And she'd even be like, well, my globe was better. Like, you got to work harder. Or my mission was better. Whatever it was, she would always try to outdo us, and we were very competitive. So, I didn't think I would ever become an artist. Going into college, I had no idea what I wanted to study. I got this huge opportunity, and I decided to keep taking art classes, and ultimately, I just can't stop. I need to keep making work. And I have a lot of energy, and I talk really fast, and I just need to be doing something for like hours on end. So I have to say my family in that environment, and then also my sisters pushing me and competing with me, created what I do now.
Thank you. One of the phrases that I keep coming back to in our conversations together was something that Eliza had said, which is this idea of a thread to follow, and how this thread to follow is something that, in thinking about just our conversations and how to synthesize our conversation, and really, I think, to give, again, more context to each of you's work, one of the things that I know, because I've listened to you all in your stories, is really there is this long thread to follow within your families, because you've spent, in each of you in your own way, a lot of time making a path that was uniquely yours. Even though, like Eliza, you come from a family who is very well known and artistic, but each of you in distinct ways have really done and made a lot of effort carving out space for yourself within your families and in the greater communities that you come from. And I can assume that that wasn't always easy. So I'd like to know, what were the challenges that you faced to come to this moment?
Challenges. There's so many challenges. I don't like to think about my challenges because they could easily lead to deep, dark depression, and then why am I even doing this? Because it's overwhelming sometimes. But the two biggest challenges that I've faced. One of them having to do with this career path has to do with stereotypes. We've been battling stereotypes within the field of Native American fashion since at least the 1940s with Lloyd Kivanou, and how each designer and each artist is constantly up against those expectations of what Native American fashion should look like. It should have fringe, it should have feathers, it should have turquoise, da-da-da-da-da. And yes, some of it does have that, and that's really beautiful and amazing, but it doesn't need to have that in order to be made by a Native American person. And then that connects with appropriation and cultural appropriation. My definition of appropriation is the unauthorized taking of someone else's cultural stuff. And we see that a lot in the fashion industry as a whole, where you have these huge companies that are ripping off actual Native American artists, giving them no credit at all and making a lot of money off of it. So those two kind of go hand in hand. The other challenge is a personal challenge of just living in balance. I can easily be a workaholic. I love my work. I can obsess over it. So I try to cycle through different types of working, from the stuff that requires paperwork, brain stuff, to the creative stuff, to the being around people or being alone, but then also living in balance with family and friends. So I'm gonna cry. One of the biggest challenges was losing my grandma a year ago. So we're on the anniversary of when we brought her into the hospital a year ago. And she was so strong in this very amazing force. And with her absence now, I'm seeing a void that needs to be filled. And I'm like, dang it, I think that has to be me. I think I'm not ready. But what does that mean to step up to be that strong force that says, hey, you got to come over for Sunday dinner. I don't care what you're doing right now. You need to make this a priority. Family is a priority. And so that's something that I'm struggling with right now, as you can see from my trembling voice. But so those would be my two biggest challenges right now, is just on that side of stereotypes, the appropriation stuff that I can battle with, and have I have my toolkit, my weapons for that. But this challenge of having to step up for the family is something completely new for me, and I do not have my toolkit yet. But hopefully Grandma already gave it to me, and I just need to find it.
Actually, similar to Jessica, I can totally become a complete workaholic, like unhealthy, skipping meals, working all through the night, and it can be like very bad. So I think I also have to work on that, because I'll even not drink water, not have to take bathroom breaks, not have to, so that's something I'm working on, just to be in balance. Because I was recently in Ireland and doing a printmaking fellowship, and my last week, just everything was rolling, and I felt really confident, I felt really good about what I was making, but then I stopped sleeping, and then I just was constantly working, and even I'd come into the shop and be the first one there, and then the people would be like, oh, hey, again, you're here early, and then I'd be the last to leave. And so I got pretty out of balance, and I started letting go of my social life and just being healthy. So that's something, as an artist and as somebody who just makes a lot of work a lot, I have to work on that every day. And something that is a huge challenge to me is navigating my Native identity as a Native artist. My mother was adopted near the Northern Cheyenne Reservation from a women's shelter. Her mother had her too young, and in the middle of the night, my grandma Jeannie biologically got snuck away to give birth to my mother. And my mother, through the Catholic Church, was adopted by my grandma, Irish, but she was my grandma. She lived with us for the past 15 years of her life. And so that's my mom's identity. She grew up in a non-Native community in Livingston, Montana, and she just kind of ran from that. She also had 4 other Native American siblings adopted in her family, all different tribes. So she had 5 siblings, white parents, and lived in a mostly white town. And she couldn't really avoid not being Native American. She looks very Native American. she was treated very Native American, even though she was raised in a white Catholic family. So we don't have too many traditions. My mother basically ran from that type of identity, ran all the way to California. And so that's something that I'm trying to educate myself, educate my family, work with my mother for both of us to learn. And I mean, even in college, I was surrounded by a lot more natives than I ever was growing up. And my mom called me. She's like, guess what? I made gluten-free fry bread. And it's like, I was like, how'd it turn out, Mom? Really bad. Really bad. And I mean, that's like a very precious story, but it just really explains, you know, us and our family. So my Native identity is somewhat limited in scope, as I did not have elders to look up to or people to really ask me questions. And I'm friends with my grandma Jeannie on Facebook now, so I can like write her and she'll write me, and we're still in contact with her. My mom got to meet her when my mom turned 25, and at her father's funeral. So, and now she is in contact with Jeannie, and they call, and I think it's really good. But navigating my own identity as a Native artist, I feel responsible for educating myself and knowing that I don't know a lot of things, and I accept that, and I'm working on that. So those are my challenges.
You know, I feel silly saying that I have challenges. To grow up as my mother's daughter is an incredible blessing. To grow up with a mom who is saying, hey girl, this is your life to define the way you want, and I'm here to support you. Over and over again in every interpretation of that. So I knew that was my job. I was encouraged to find myself and decide how I wanted to interpret this experience of being a person here. And that was affirmed constantly. I think that the challenges that I've experienced were problems that I created for myself, all on my own. And then challenges also of identity. I think for anybody to grow up in this time, or I was born in 1980, is challenging. Perhaps it's challenging to grow up at any time. I imagine it's getting more challenging to grow up. I'm a bicultural person. My dad is from Connecticut. My mom is from Santa Clara Pueblo, and so he met my mom when they were 24 years. He was 24 years old in the Pueblo and stayed there. Because of superficial issues, I grew up thinking that I was a representation of a loss of culture. And I was, that was an expression of, a larger loss happening within our community, changes happening really quick, maybe a gardenness of a shift in culture that was happening anyway, but I think that in some ways my lighter skin became something that I had to figure out, right? And you can't have a mom like I do, and you can't live with this feeling of like, man, I represent loss. It's not good to live that way. And so it became this process for me to figure out how to honor myself as a representation of growth and becoming and change. That regardless of your skin color, regardless of whether you're living on a reservation or in a city, whether you know your indigenous background or not, whether you're indigenous or not, that you are a representation of something cool happening. I think that coming comfortable with that led me to try to redefine for myself how to work in this field of artwork, of professionalism outside of a Western context. And that was a tall order. I think of something as simple as like an artist statement or a biography, which are pretty standard things. You know, you write where you've gone to school, and that's a representation of your worth, right? That's the shows you've had, the awards you've gotten, and those are all very Western concepts, right? And so I always felt itchy in that. And so as I got older, to become comfortable with saying, you know, all of this is some sort of like invented standard, right? And I can redefine this any way I want. If my most valuable sources of education and information have come from my elders, then I'm going to put that right on top, you know? And so getting to a point where I can define my, like as my mom says, this is your life, girl, define this on your, you know, on your terms. So I don't know if I can, that was a challenge in that it was, took a while for me, even with somebody encouraging me, but I also feel like it was a pretty, you know, goodness, of all the rough things to go through. Not so bad.
Thank you so much. I just want to appreciate, just extend appreciation to each of you for being so vulnerable with us, and just say, like, just to share that space with you is really a privilege. So thank you, Jaclyn. And you have each, you know, touched on this conversation, but I feel like it's always worth carving out more space to honor the matriarchs in our life. And each of you have spoken to already, but also have shared just this, the way that women in your life have really molded you to be the people that you are, and just wanted to spend time to pay tribute to that, and just if you could share what that has meant to you.
Yeah, I come from a huge family of very, very strong women. You have to be strong to be from North Dakota. It's cold. It's not easy living up there. But the biggest gift that they have given me is blind support. And no matter what I'm doing, they support me 110%. So whenever I told them I was going to go get my PhD, they were like, I don't know what that is. Yay! I'm writing my dissertation. I don't know what that is. Yay! I'm going to launch an online store that's focusing on Native American fashion. Yay! You know, I'm going to open a fashion retail store on the reservation. They're like, yay! And they all show up, and so much support. But I had to move back home in order to continue on this path because I needed their blind support. I needed that grounding. They ground me constantly. And interestingly, their support and grounding is the same effects that I get whenever I go back home. I've lived other places. I've lived in New Hampshire and Arizona and New Mexico, and I always had to go back home often, at least 3 or 4 times a year, to reconnect with that space, with that place, with that earth. That is where I am from. That is where my people are from. And the old medicine men would, you know, kick off their moccasins and have their bare feet on the ground. And I'm not saying that I'm a medicine person at all, but it doesn't take a medicine person to feel the healing powers of the earth that she's giving you through your feet and up through your body. And so it's so crazy how those things fuel me and replenish me, because I get to travel a lot for work, but I always have to go home and replenish myself. And that sense of blind support that I get from my family, I pass it on to the artists that I work with. Being an artist is a hard job. It's a hard career path. There's a lot of things that you might not be so sure about. And so my job is to be like, that's brilliant. That's awesome. You got this. Do it. I got you. You know, I'll support you 110%. And so that's what I do is I funnel that energy back out to as many people as possible because it's not easy. And I want to do what I can to have a positive impact on this world, on this earth.
It's just completely encompassing. The women in my family have just inspired every single aspect of the way that I am. And I think they're curious, they're strong, they're smart, they're hardworking. And they encouraged, they modeled that. I think there's this idea at home, of course, of balance. This is something common to all of us, not to all of us, this search for balance, this important aspect of humanness that is balance. And so there's this idea that to go forward, be the female and the male that you have inside of yourself, both of these things. And the women in my family are amazing, and they're female in their nature, but they exist with that balance, as do the men in my family, who are less spoken of, and we're in a moment of appreciating women, but I would like to honor the aspect of maleness in them as well, and I would like to honor the aspect of femaleness in men. So I think that's something that was important that they gave me, that knowing, and to sort of check in that in myself became a source of grounding as well. Yeah.
Yeah, in my immediate family, I have 2 younger sisters, and then my mom, and we had 2 girl dogs. So my father was really outnumbered. And my mom likes to say if we take it to a vote, he would always lose. And I appreciate him too for dealing with 3 daughters. And my mom's a complete tomboy growing up. She only had friends with boys. She played with the boys. She just always thought she would have all boys. And then she popped out 3 daughters. So in my immediate family, I've got my sisters, and I'm really close with them. I've got one coming in a few hours to visit me, and she's only a year and a half younger than me. And so we hated each other for about 18 years, and then now we're best friends, as my mom said what would happen. And then my youngest sister is at MSU, Montana State, in Bozeman, getting her degree, and now she's going to study art, she just told me. So, and I think just having my sisters, we grew up in one room, and it was just so much fun, and we got in so much trouble because we would never go to sleep on time. And we were always drawing. The only thing we really asked for Christmases were just art sets. And so you see pictures of us, and we're just always drawing on each other's things, always drawing on each other and whatnot. And so having each other, we spoke our own language together. We had everything. And so as influence with people even younger than me has been really huge and really motivating. And so, I used to be even a little superstitious, like when I was a gymnast for 10 years, and when I had big competitions, once I got my own bed, I'd make Bailey come sleep next to me because I couldn't. I would not have as much luck, or I wouldn't be as confident. So she got annoyed with that, but it was like a deal. She had to be next to me. And that's kind of how we live now, even though I'm all over and Bailey's in Montana, Maddie's back in California. When we get together, it's really powerful, and I'm really lucky.
Thank you. So kind of one more question, and then we'll do kind of our 7th inning stretch. So I am curious to know, this is again, this is the closing of the 4 different sessions, the speakers and panel discussions that have occurred here. And this one's entitled Of Hopes and Dreams. And so I'm curious to know, what kind of future do you want to create with your work?
Mine's super simple, and that is to advance the field of Indigenous adornment, to bring it back in all its glory, and to share that with the world. That's what I want to do.
In my own personal work, I just want to make beautiful work. I naturally am drawn to more aesthetical pieces, and I've been criticized for that over and over again, but I just naturally gravitate towards that. And for me, I want to push that and push those ideas and keep pushing my work to be different and more exciting, but ultimately make really beautiful things that people can appreciate.
Oh, goodness. I hope that I can give other people what I've gotten. I hope I can share that. I hope that I can create inclusiveness and connection. I hope that I can find ways in my lifetime to have people younger than me and people younger than them feel like they're worthwhile and that they're valuable and that there are tools that they can use to connect them back to place and connect them back to themselves and then connect them to each other. I don't have like this great like, hey, this is how I'm going to do it. But teaching has been a really like awesome way. I started doing that this year, and in my more object and socially engaged artwork, I had been seeking this kind of connection. And this became this way of like, oh my goodness, this little Sam and Kevin and Drea, who are 5 right now, they're going to be 25 years old in a heartbeat, right? All of our days are going so quickly. At least, I can't believe how quickly time is happening at this point. And that means that everything, our future is happening very quickly. And so to send this information that has been modeled to me, that has been interpreted, old information that has been luckily interpreted by the people around me, not just carried forward in a form of tradition and without straying, but with a sense of curiosity and saying, how does this connect with the world we're in now? That tool, I hope that I can give to other people. I hope that I can, I look out in the audience and there's so many of you that I know are working in similar ways, and it's very exciting to me because the work I'm doing isn't my own invention. It's not like my special like art thing. As I get older, I become connected with people in all kinds of ways that are making art about life, making art about connection, making it universal, boundaryless, and in really beautiful ways, even in institutional formats, bringing spirit, bringing blessing into the future. And so I that's what I hope to continue doing and figuring out and spend my life connecting with